Go ahead.
Are we on? Good,
Yep.
good afternoon. This is the good old days. Patricia Riley has a previous commitment and will not be with us today. So Lou and I believe we have confidence in ourselves, and we can do this without Pat.
We'll definitely give it a college try.
In conclusion, I would say 1 second before, Lou, you and I get into what we talk about as we talk. You and I talk about this. We walk and we bump into each other. We talk about these things. But we lost Pat White this past week. And just a moment, if I may just say, we certainly were very fortunate as a town to have her. She taught over 30 years in the school system. She wrote the history of the town of Raynham. She was active in the senior groups. And just a wonderful lady. And
Father-in-law was the first police chief, right?
that's right. He was the first, and she lives up on Orchard Street, and I think the Orchard Street houses, he worked out of the Orchard Street house, I believe.
First police chief,
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah.
Father-in-law.
That's what she said.
Yep.
And so it must be so. So we will miss her. Well, we'll get back to some of the points. I did want to get into the squeeze play, not mentioned because the Red Sox are having trouble, but that's the name of a restaurant. But I also, in case we did run out of time, I did want to talk a little bit about 138 and 44, just to sort of familiarize the people watching with what may occur in the future as far as traffic and police concerns go. I am aware, and you educated me to it, that Walmart on Route 44, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I guess, had a habit of calling about once a day, year-round.
Well, they called more than that, but at times they were getting more than one person arrested per day for shoplifting.
And therefore, they were calling more than that even,
Yes.
so that could...
Yeah, there was peripheral calls, parking lot, file lane parking, larceny from a car, those type of calls. But they would generate, as I recall, somewhere between 300 and 400 arrests a year.
And then a miracle happened. They got
the religion.
They got religion. They got challenged for profiling. Heaven forbid that they would do that. And for 1 year, what happened?
The arrests dropped off almost none while they reevaluated their procedures and retrained their people. So they literally went from an arrest plus per day to no arrests, zero. And
which shows, by the way, the fact that the store wasn't emptied out by trucks backing up and all. It shows that really there wasn't as much trouble there as they maybe made it out to be. Well,
it's a situation that Walmart takes very seriously, as you can tell from their security cameras, and in many of them, they never had it in Raynham, but in many they'll have a car patrolling with yellow flashing lights, like a police car, but not blue lights, yellow lights.
Yeah, in the parking lot.
In the parking lot. So I guess that's probably for areas where they don't have the police coverage that we have. See, they're lucky here because 44 is heavily traveled and well patrolled. We always kept it well staffed.
Right.
And they're 15 seconds from 44. So they would get their share of the patrol.
The reason I bring them up is that I'm always looking for things in the future that happen. The future Walmart on Route 138, and as you explained to me that the center of Raynham backed up the 44 police when there were calls.
When there's three on.
When there's three on. But
when
if
there's two on, the south backs up.
138 has to back up. And then now we're going to get a Walmart on 138. If they have the same practice as the one on 44, I can just picture these cars crisscrossing and therefore leaving some section of the town unprotected, if that is what we say.
Well, as I explained many times, and I'm sure the current chief has explained too, there's multiple factors come into play. One is it's dangerous running back and forth across town when there's heavy traffic. I mean, you got school buses, you got pedestrians, bicycle traffic, et cetera, et cetera. So the safest way is to have your patrol and keep your patrol right in the center. That's not rocket science. Number two is that there's a very good chance that the rail's going to come in. And if rail comes in, then that means that at times you're going to literally have the town literally cut in half. You see it in Bridgewater now. Many times you'll see the trains across the streets.
Are they, you may be more current than I on this now, because they were talking about a tunnel underneath 138. Are they still saying that, do you know?
That was one of the possibilities, or raising 138 over the track.
Right.
I have no idea where they are. Every week it's a different plan.
I think it will be.
Right
of
now
course
they don't
you
have
know I'm
enough.
opposed to it.
They don't have enough money to pay for it, whatever they're doing.
No.
But
Yeah.
for planning, as you planned
Yeah.
44 back in the day, when it was, the hill there was empty. I mean, we planned for having an industrial park in there, and knowing that we were going to have whatever was in there was going
Yes.
to generate calls.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was at that time. I think it was Allied Stores or something that
Yeah, Jordan Marsh site.
Jordan Marsh site.
And Jordan Marsh was bought out by the Allied Store, a Canadian company, but their main office for us was in New York, and they were Jordan Marsh.
So, I mean, people knew ahead of time that the build-out was coming. The police department knew it. The selectman and the chief at the time, Peter King, had a build-out scheduled for people to do that. And of course, it happened just the way that was laid out. More buildings come, and they bring more buildings. More business comes, and it brings more business. For instance, the Walmart is what draws Lowe's,
That's right.
Longhorn, Applebee's, and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. Just like the used car places and the new car places draw more new car places.
It's interesting. May I quickly, though, introduce ourselves in a sense for people who may be watching this for the first time and say, who are those two guys talking? What are they talking
Who are
about?
those?
So Chief
They
was...
must have a camera at the home.
Yeah. Oatmeal with lumps for that guy for not introducing each other. But Lou was chief in the police for how many, 40
Almost
years?
40 years, yep.
And then chief for?
5.
5 years. And I was a selectman for 39 years. And so what we're talking about, we kind of have a knowledge of what we're talking about. Interesting enough, though, and I will get back to the other Walmart, but one thing always reminds me of something else, and that's why these things go on. Originally, there was a complaint by some of the businesses when Walmart came in. You can imagine that. The original Raynham Park Industrial Park was so strict with its zoning law, drawn up by themselves, with the approval, obviously, of the planning board in Raynham. But they were so strict that suddenly, when they looked up at a Walmart came into town with plastic bags in the driveway and the wind blows up and it goes into their yard, they were very upset about that. And they did complain. It didn't go anywhere. But to get back to the original point, it is said that the reason the Walmart was acceptable to that zoning and was an exception to the rule was because of a recession at the time. So economics determined the fact that Walmart came in. Now, why the second Walmart is coming in, now we'll get to that, because my contention is, and there's a theory on this, that if the slots are approved, and I will say Plainville surprised me that they were discounted. I mean, it was almost like they threw a pitch at a guy, not that anybody would ever do that. And then the other thing was now, but there's a town, just within the last week or so, one of the towns voted down the zoning change for slots. So it's like the old 10 Little Indians movie, and then there were none. It's, I originally, it was a flip of the coin between Plainville and Raynham, and now I got a feeling it's going to be Raynham. I got to think we're going to have it. But having it and we briefly discussed this before the show went on, having it, some people were talking about crime rates and things of this nature. My contention is the money we gain from the slots, people say, well, the tax is going to go down. I don't think so. I think the police and the fire are going to have to up their game to 138. And therefore, there will have to be an expanded coverage of 138 so that there can be a backup for 44.
Well, I mean, you know,
But
to
it
go
isn't
back,
the cause of slots, though. That's what I want to get across. I'm going to blame Walmart because it's easy, because I like blaming Walmart, because everybody, you know, they're like A-Rod, Walmart.
I have nothing against Walmart.
I
even
don't
though
either.
that
I go
I've
there.
never-
I shop there.
I've never seen anybody from Raynham in there. I see a lot of people from Raynham at the track working.
But what I'm saying is, for people who think that the police or the fire in large is going to be because of the slots, I think it will be because of the money coming in from the slots. It will not be
No,
because
I
of
mean,
the
you've
slots.
lived this. You've
But-
lived this. We had racing
Yeah.
there. When I first started, my grandfather worked there as a
Yeah.
policeman.
Yeah.
My uncle as a policeman. My father's generation. My generation and my kids
Sure.
as policemen.
Yes.
You know, we went from what, 30 days? Started with 30 days or
Yeah, and
something
they
like
end up
that?
with 80, and then all of a sudden, year round.
We had at 30 days, even though the track was up there, the track was subsidizing the police department. It was paying for equipment. It was paying for uniforms for
Yeah.
guys by paying people up there. When I first came on, we had 25 details up there 40 years ago, 42 years ago,
Yeah.
44 years, whatever it's been since.
Well, there was
And-
a policeman on streets because of the traffic.
Yes, but the point was, many times we had searches, calls off, assist other police departments, assist other towns, that we would pull a half a dozen people from the track, or 5 people, or 3, or 2. So the track was all, even though the town subsidizes the track to a certain extent, the track can pay it back. When's the last time you seen Walmart give you 4 officers for 4 hours?
Well, that's my contention, and I'm sticking to it, that the slots are not going to be the reason for the increase in coverage.
Nothing
It
I've
will
seen
be-
up there
It
would.
will be Walmart, but the slots will increase in the budget where people think taxes may go down. I think to maintain a quality of life now, not anything other than just fattening up a budget. I don't think we'll do that. But I think that the quality of life that people want to maintain, there will be a fire station in the north. We already have the land for it. We got 2 pieces that we could be. And also there'll be a what would we call the police? They'll have an
Substation.
substation of the police up there. But not just for any other reason other than that will be needed. That will be for the quality of life for the people to make sure everything goes on.
I have perfect confidence that they will. I mean, we used to have the Brockton Fair
I know.
there for years.
I remember.
And most people in Raynham never even knew it was there.
No.
They never knew that it was there.
No.
Because it's just as a quirk or whatever it is, you come and go from that track most of the time without using the local streets and stuff in Raynham. And the ones that we did use, we ended up, as you recall, horsing off, blocking off, so that people wouldn't use it.
And the funny thing about cities and towns, it isn't just Raynham, but we're not special. They take things that may be other and put it on somebody else's line. I mean, the landfill for Taunton and Raynham, the original
Oh, yeah.
landfill, was on each other's lines.
Yeah.
And it was separated by a swamp, which we paid no attention to. And we just threw things into that swamp. And I can remember Albert Porter going up, drawing the line. He said, Donald, Taunton's in our Raynham again, you know. Taunton's landfill would go over the thing. And you go to most communities, you watch them, and where there's a line, there's a landfill. Now we call them landfills. That's nice. We used to call them dumps.
Or triple X places.
Yeah, there could be, though. That would be another story. Yeah, don't get me going. But that track was up there, you're right. And George Carney said originally he wanted to put it in Easton over the line on the other side of the Hockomock. I think there's like a driving range down there now. There's all sorts of little amenities down there. You know, it's very nice. Easton didn't want it, you know.
Yeah. And like
And
I say,
so
you
they
come
put
and
it
go by
at-
138,
yeah, yeah.
106,
Yeah,
495,
yeah.
and that's the name of that track. And we even took the Taunton dog track, which caused all kinds of problems with traffic for Taunton.
I know.
Put it in Raynham, and there wasn't even a blip on the screen. So for whatever reason, whether it's
Yeah.
well run,
Yeah.
whether it's well located,
Yeah.
whether it was done on purpose, or whether it was done by mistake, they can handle that. They've been handling it for generations. I don't see
The
a
question will be, and you and I don't have the solution to it. If you want to give one, I'd love it. 138 in the future. Walmart and, you know, in Market Basket, things like
Well,
that.
you've tried to address that at least a half a dozen
Well,
times,
it takes
right?
the neighbors' cooperation. The funniest one was there was a neighbor of Donnie Francis. I love to talk about Donnie because he won't come on the show, so I talk about him all the time. I'm mad.
Wonder if
I don't
he
think-
watches it.
No, sure he does. He's not talking to me. But anyway, Donnie Francis had a neighbor that every time he wanted to put in sort of a general type of zone, the neighbor was, "Oh, residential will always be." It sounded like the guy that said my dead hand or whatever it was, that guy, the movie actor, B-movie actor. And then the guy came to sell his house. Well, he changed the zone. He had a professional building there and the whole thing. Donnie was so mad at the guy. And everybody knew the guy at the time. That's the way it is, though.
And isn't it, as I recall, isn't it zoned different things on different sides
Yes,
of
it
the
is.
street?
Yes,
And,
it is.
you know.
The
So
last,
that's got to be done. Now, that was not done on 44, because
No.
44 was always, since I was a kid,
Yeah.
perceived to be the industrial or the commercial part.
accepted.
Although,
Yeah.
as I recall, and you can probably straighten me out on this, I thought when Markowski and those guys were in charge, that it was over where the sand pits are off of Pine Street at that time was the industrial triangle or whatever they called it.
I did mention that to George Carney, of which he didn't address it. I don't play cards, but if I played cards, I would never play cards against that man. I mean, you look at him, and he just floats away from that thing. It is said that there was going to be a clover leaf when 495 completed from Mansfield. That was called the missing link, we used to call it in those days. Actually, once it completed, it sprung not only Taunton's industrial park, but Raynham's industrial. And you're right. They went and they zoned in around Pine Street, and Mr. Carney and a couple of his partners and people like that, not that they had insider information, but they bought up all that land in around there now, and all of a sudden, I will say there was a representative from the city of Taunton who managed to get off on Bay Street, an exit off of 495. It wasn't originally scheduled. And the people on Bay Street were not in my backyard people. They did not want that exit off of there, and they fought it
And that's why that exit's so messed up.
because it was
It's a junk exit.
yeah, but
It's a terrible exit.
the reason is it was
It
not
was done
planned.
as a- yeah,
It was
done
not
as
part of
a-
the plan.
Wow, I never knew that.
Well, not only that, look at the industrial park. And not to, you know, Taunton's great.
You're
Richard.
absolutely
You and
right.
I.
Because if you go up two more exits, you've got a real industrial park exit, don't you?
Yes, you do. And,
I never.
and they've still got the land.
I'm going to come on this show more
No.
often. This is very
Yeah, but I know
educational.
you and the people out there can keep this secret. It's very important that you keep this to
It's just
yourself.
between us.
Yeah, because then they get stuck with all this land. And the guy, see, we do good. I like not to mention names because then people home say, I know who he's talking about. So the guy, the rep that did that, got so many complaints, he got in such a doghouse, that he had to get a sign erected that said, business traffic use next exit. Well, that was 138. What town would that have been in? Oh, yeah, Raynham.
And then
138.
up Carver Street?
No, you would have gone down once,
Yeah,
if
up
you stayed on
138.
495, you would have got off at 138.
And take a right on Carver to go back up the bay.
If that's the way you're doing it, yeah, and people do it, and I do it now. I must say, I go by Harry Carey's house all the time. But, so anyway, he ran.
That is funny.
Huh?
That's funny. I never realized that.
Well,
I mean, I knew the exit was messed up.
Oh, yeah, well, because it wasn't planned. And when the guy, with his luck, though, and everybody's saying, oh, I know who it is now, he decides to run for state senator. And I said to him, Mr. Representative, you've got a sign saying, turn up the next exit. Let me tell you the two reasons why not. First of all, you're catering only to Taunton, but you want voters in Raynham to vote for you as state senator. And I said, as far as 138 is concerned, the same thing's going to happen to 138 that happened to Route 44, and you guys in Taunton have been whining about. We lost all our business to Raynham. They stole our business. They took Grossman's and they took all our business. They zoned their own business out in the city of Taunton. And when it came to Route 44, that's where they had to go. And it went to Route 24, so it was unnatural. So now I says, you're going to start whining again because you want people to, you wanted to have he did want the industrial park. But the people didn't want traffic up and down the Bay Street. And so as a result of this, he had this sign up. I said, if you want any votes in Raynham at all, you better get rid of that. So that sign was down within a week. Wait for the next tour. And Pine Street, though, is still sitting there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
I can remember my cousin calling that the industrial triangle.
Yes, he did. I wonder how he knew. Well, some of the guy, what was the guy's, the rep, Rogers was his name?
Yep.
He bought a piece of land.
Selectman first and then rep.
Yeah, and then he ended up in Rentham or somewhere, pieces of land out in the middle of everywhere. Everybody said, what's he buying that land out in the middle of nowhere? And whoop, down comes 495. Peter Flynn was the pusher to get the missing link. That was his big push. And look at what he did for these districts. And Eddie Roster and Lou Riccardi are the two people that were working for the industrial park, and the city of Taunton was, and still is, fighting them on the expansion of that industrial park. I mean, that's a piece of gold. And hey, they didn't even want to fix the street. Not that I'm picking on Taunton, but I don't think, Michael, we don't want this show to be sent down to Taunton this time because I have to go there all the time. I did work there for a while.
So anyways, you're absolutely right. There's going to be Walmart at one end and the track or casinos at the other end.
Yeah.
And the middle's got to be addressed, no question.
And so I think the quality of life with the slots. Now, if the slots doesn't come in, I think we got a little bit of a problem there. I think
I agree.
Maybe the police will have to go and sit down and talk to the Walmart people and say, you're going to have to work with us on this.
There's other options. You could put, they could put a substation in that area. There's other things that could be done.
We got to the subject now of the squeeze play, and we didn't even talk about that. So I'm wondering, can you give us a little bit of information on career number 5 that you're in now? And because I don't know in 6 minutes if we're going to get the squeeze play.
I'm working down the DA's office, part-time.
And by the way, is this not the best DA we've had in our lifetime?
He does a good job. He does a very good job. I think you can see that on the Hernandez case. I think you can.
I said to Kathy when Hernandez, I said, he picked the wrong town to do this in.
He exactly did.
We're not going to say he's guilty because it's alleged.
No. But I can just say that the office is addressing it the same way it addresses every single homicide that I've seen since we've been down there.
Yeah.
I mean, he ran on no 2 sets of rules. Certain set of people get one set of rules, certain set get another set. He ran on that not happening, and I see a case like this comes up and it proves it. You know, there'll be a lot of activity and action going on, you know, as the case develops and goes down. And I think people see it. I think they've seen it already.
Yeah.
Compared to some of the other cases where everything's leaking and people trying to make political statements and so on and so forth. I don't think you're seeing that now. So they got a good crew down there. It took years to build it up. That Bill McCauley, the first assistant, is handling it. He's won 14 of his last 15 murder. I take that back. The office has won 14 of its last 15 homicide cases. McCauley has cleared 10 cold cases in a row, one of them going back 25 years.
Wow. Wow.
And only lost one. And he's the head of, just happened to be the head of this one. And this one spans several different states, and people have read about it in the newspaper.
Yeah, yeah.
We can't talk about any specifics of the case
No,
because
because
of
you're
grand
still
jury
into it,
issues
yeah.
and confidentiality and so on and so forth. But it'll play out, and I think people will be proud of who they got for DA. And
I
district.
always say, to a fault, the good news and the bad news. The good news and the bad news. The good news about this part of the state is that Boston doesn't pay an awful lot of attention to us. And the bad news is Boston doesn't pay a lot of attention to us because they don't know how good that office is, because they just don't send anybody down this way anymore. I am concerned about newspapers, Lou, I'm an old timer, I understand that. I still read paper, I read the paper, and I understand what the Globe was bought out the other day for 10 cents on the dollar. So, I mean, the clue is pretty much there.
By the Red Sox people, right?
Yes, by John Henry.
Yep.
I don't know if how much his piece of the thing is, but
And then the Washington Post was bought by Amazon.
Google or Amazon, yeah. And something's happening, but I'm just concerned that the newspaper writers, the reporters, I think we've got some good local ones here, by the way. Some of the reporters are very, very good. Mark LaRocque, I think he does a great job with the Gazette.
Isn't it interesting, though? I know you're such a history buff and fanatic. Isn't it interesting that the newspapers are going back now to the Titans, just like they used to be back in the 1920s? Remember, we grew up knowing newspapers as conglomerates, as being owned as a business, as a enterprise.
Yes, yes.
But previous to that, they were owned by
the local family. The Taylors owned the Globe, and
yeah, and it was the the rich people, the Hearst,
the Post.
the Hearst, and then they went public or whatever they did as far as business wise, and it became a corporation, and now it's going back to the new Titans, which are usually
it will be interesting to see what
and,
this fellow does. And I'm just concerned that they don't have enough money, evidently, to send reporters out the way they did.
Well, they just keep reporting each other's stuff, but the reporters
don't get people going on the. What's the name of the,
They do.
No, but I mean, what's the name of the local paper now? I get the three papers. I get the Enterprise, I get the Gazette, and I get the Call, and of course I get the Globe. But I mean, those three papers I get, and they're all part of one chain. So if you read,
that's even worse. But
if
they
you read
still
the
all
article,
steal from each other online.
but these guys don't steal. What they do is they take the same report and they put it in different papers, different
That's
days.
a different issue. That's
have-
cloning.
Is that what they call that? Yeah,
But
that's
I have
good.
talked to some of the older reporters, and they want to give it a shot because they know that they can't continue the way it's going.
Yeah.
It's bleeding to death.
But I can remember Lorraine Nye back here in the old days. She was, so once, and they get on the, like glue. Like
She was like the Bob Woodward of...
I know she was. See, we're ending on a tease. So thank you very much, Lou, for coming in. We
no
missed
problem.
Pat, but we floated through for 1/2 hour. And we thank everybody for watching.
Thank you for having me. I love to... I came here to vote the other day, and the media grabbed me on the way out.
Oh, was it the interview?
First time I've been in front of a microphone since
Wow.
I left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Channel.
And it feels good not to be.
Well, thank you all for
Channel
watching.
12.
And Channel 12 is I watch once in a while those local channels, although I do watch 5.
I want to know if I was against gambling.
Well, what's the odds of that?
That's what I told them. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lou. Appreciate you coming in.
Bye.
Pat Riley, we did okay. Well, she'll tell us we did okay anyway because she spoils
She'll
us.
probably watch.
I'm sure she